What's up, guys? Um, I'm going to do a quick summary of my new topic video coming up. Uh, Recently was reminded of what it would be by a friend of mine. Um, narcissistic parents. How to deal with the causes and effects, the symptoms of the abuse, and how to differentiate between your intuition and falsehood, faultiness. In other words, a lot of the time there's going to be somebody in your life that says something that's easily said, and a lot of time what's easily said is pretty much like disguised in sheep's clothing. What I mean by that is when a person says something that's so obvious to the point where you're not offended, but you're on the offense, and sometimes on the defense. You're not always neutral because you are the type of person to choose a position. If you're not a neutral person, and I'm talking about with your day ones, and you pick and choose how you approach them, I say if you go off just intentions, it's not going to come out pretty. And I'm speaking from experience. Most of my life, especially growing up, I'm totally different person I am today than I was back then. I'm talking about more on the internal level than the external level. Um, Let me put this out there first. Some people you can't help but be around until you're around more quality people. Meaning, it's not the people that you were with aren't worthy, or you're better than them, or they're better than you. It just means that sometimes you outgrow people, and sometimes they outgrow you. It doesn't mean it's tragic always. Sometimes it just means that it's normal. But growing up, especially like being totally different than how I was, how I handle things, dealing with certain things about myself that worked in my favor and in others' favor in positive ways, but a lot of the time, I would say it would be more negative than positive on the surface. Um, it would affect things negatively. And what I mean by that is when somebody snaps and they often snap at a particular thought process that they haven't yet challenged within themselves and go, why does this make me mad? They know why it makes them mad, but they don't take it a step further. You might make the argument, oh, you were a kid or you were a teenager, but still, I was one of those old soul self-aware people. And if you're wondering if you're self-aware, there's all kind of like ways to like discredit somebody's um, platform. In other words, if somebody, let's play devil's advocate. Somebody out there might be like, if you're so self-aware, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? My thing is, self-awareness is not about being a know-it-all. It's about not know. It's about knowing you don't know enough and going based off what life gives you and what you give life. Um, so it was hard for me to imagine, hey, maybe I should like humble myself a little bit more. No, I was an all-out, rebel. Still to this day, like it's still part of me. I'm still gonna be this to the day I die. And what's in a lot of aspects in society now more than ever, especially it's way more than I when I was growing up. They're trying to make it to where it's a bad thing to be defiant, to be an alpha male, to be an alpha female. But more so, let's stick with alpha male. Alpha male is wrong to be smart when the time is right, that you're hating if you disagree with somebody, that you're hating because you question somebody, that you're hating because you know, society in a lot of aspects is twisting what things are. And this is a problem. This is a huge problem because it affects you on an individual level, and it also affects everyone else around you. It affects our progress going forward. Now, if you ask me, what are you doing to make change? Or how can we, you know, honestly, I'm taking baby step by baby step by baby step because I struggle from. I mean, I know who I am enough to know what I want and don't want. Sometimes it changes because as a person, I change faster than the average person, and when I'm told. Um, a teacher's friend of mine, a former teacher's friend of mine, told me that because I told her, I said, ever since I was a kid, I told if I didn't agree with you, I told you no, 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 no. I was way more disagreeable than I thought. I was way more disagreeable at the age 6 to 17 than I was after that. And I'm 23 now. I just turned 23 in January. I was way more disagreeable. So that tells me something. That tells me that it makes sense because this I might put this in my book one day, or when if I write a book or if I make it to a point in my life, and then I'm like, because it's about timing, right? I want to write my book at the right time, and I want to write about a specific. Obviously, you want to write and have a topic, but I want it to be a specific, very very specific thing. Around 17, 18, 19, 20. I mean, high school counts in a way. Well, going into high school, but I'll just leave that. It's related or it's contrast, but my approach to yeah, let's say around 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, around those ages, I was extremely depressed. I was extremely depressed, and this depression, I've always battled depression. This depression was unlike any other depression I've faced because I could barely put on a smile. I can barely walk outside. I can barely even talk. And in my belief is because of what I've been through, my body, my soul, my spirit was telling me, you know what? At the time I didn't notice. You know what? Take some time off. You don't have to go off on everybody. You don't have to correct yourself all the time. You don't have to be on your best game. You don't have to be on your best non-behavior. Does that make sense? Non-conformist speaking. You don't have to be what you're so used to all the time because you're gonna wear yourself out. That's probably one of those things that saved my life. If I had not done certain things consciously, like cutting off a lot of people that pretty much on an individual level, most of the time it's not personal. It's just that I don't need or think is necessary for your energy to be in my world. Um, I don't think we fit. Um, and it's not all about what you think, but you're going based off what is given, and you're going based off what you give. So in other words, mirrors are a reflection of you and the person. Some people don't notice. But relationships is a spiritual. It's just as spiritual as it is physical. You know, if I had not done a lot of things to this day consciously, practicing mindfulness, like constantly 24/7, I have to remind myself not to like uh dwell or focus on my feelings as much as I used to. It is not that you a bitch ass motherfucker, but focusing on. I'm being blunt. If anybody watched this video, um, that's just how I am. It's not that you being a bitch ass motherfucker, but you being a person who rather be real with who you are, how you feel, where you come from, how you think, than a motherfucker who acts like shit ain't happening. Now, ironically, I'm the type of person that can't stand acting like things don't happen. Things didn't happen. Things can happen. What can possibly go wrong? And the next thing you know, by the time I got to 18 years old, I gained, it was the first time I gained weight. It was the first time I gained weight to the point where like I had stretch marks. See, stretch marks right there. And I wasn't like fat. I was just like chubby a little bit, a little chubby. And I'm usually like skinny. Most of my life I was way skinnier than this, but I stopped being athletic. I stopped playing what was second nature to me, basketball. I stopped skating. I stopped traveling a lot. I stopped doing a lot of things that pretty much was like a coping mechanism for the storm I was in those present moments, in that point in time in my life. From when I was a kid, I did the most athletic things as a kid, as a teenager. I did a lot of things. I did a lot of things outside my character, but that's part. Some of it, or I would say 50%, probably a little bit more than that, was due because of out of curiosity, or it's just from what I think now. It might change later on because I'm always constantly evaluating. But because of my, like, the old saying, curiosity kills. It's a song by Trap. It's a rock band. Curiosity kills, and that's the kind of person I am. I get curious to the point where you pretty much expose certain people in your life. You're like, why does this person mistake my curiosity as this or that? It's because they're afraid to go down the rabbit hole. Get it? So in other words, it was my curiosity, and also it's my mental disorder, or from what society says, it's mental disorder. And other perspectives, it's a spiritual awakening. A spiritualist I recently met, he told me a lot of things that backed up my intuitive knowledge on why I went through what I went through, what I went through, what I went through. How did I change? How did I get to this point? How many people can relate to me? Why am I so hell bent on relating to others than judging them? A lot of stuff, right? Or being conscious of it, of that last part. You have to go based off sometimes generalities. You got to go, okay, it was a reason why I had anger issues. It was a reason why I had severe depression. It was a reason. And when you start, the more you find out about why, it sometimes can calm down the storm. The storm calms down. You're no longer lashing out, or not as much as you used to. It's not that you're incapable of being who you were, but it's just that you evolved beyond what you need to be. And some might say, "Oh, I can imagine you doing this. I can imagine you do that. I can't imagine what you've been through." Of course you can, because your imagination is limited. Your imagination is very vague. Because, like books, I open doors for possibilities. So many people in my life told me that, not to toot my own horn, but to give this topic summary of my new topic of perspective, that I've inspired them to be courageous, courageous about the most taboo things, as long as it didn't bring harm to anybody. And sometimes it will, but intentionally, you're not trying to be harmful. You're being real. Um, and being real is not talked about. It's lived. It's done. It's walked on. There's some people who claim they're real, but they go to certain functions and programs and stuff like that that they don't want to be. And somebody can play devil's advocate again, because I personally play devil's advocate a lot. Play devil's advocate with myself. For anybody out there that might have like questions, what if you, you know, what if you can't help it, or what about you? No. I see what you're saying. What about me? But that's me. You preach real, but you go to these functions. You might say, "Oh, it helps me get through my day. It helps me keep close relationships. It helps me." All right, okay. So the point you're making is focus. So when I focus on another perception to pretty much not do anything but be aware. That's all it is. That's all it is. Self awareness. You try to find a way to demonize me because I gave you an open door to new possibilities. You see, this is what I'm saying. There's a lot of shit I don't agree with that this world has, whatever. And but that I learned that don't mean I have to personalize it all the time. I was one of those people that like I care so much to the point where the littlest things piss me off. I don't know if it's because from a spiritual perspective I'm an empath, intuitive empath. I don't know if it's because I'm too sensitive. I don't know if it's because I have thick skin at the same time. There's some people who have thick skin and thin skin at the same time. There's comedians. I heard stories of some comedians who, like, I mean, come on, to be a comedian. Um, well, I can't say for nowadays. Nowadays, it's kind of diluted. But just generally speaking, to be a comedian, you got to be relentless. You got to be quote unquote savage. You got to like you against the whole world. You up there with a microphone, you know, taking the world on your own, right? And your goal is to make them laugh about what makes them hurt. I've heard stories of some comedians that go in the bathroom and cry. So this is what I'm saying. When someone is doing everything they can to figure out why they did what they did, why are they the way they are, etc., etc., that's a contrast to society. That's a contrast to other countries. That's a contrast to the world. Some people, and I'm speaking on what it is. Some people are too in tune with their own world. That's a different. It's a little different than what I was just talking about. In tuning of your own world is, um, oh, I don't care what you do as long as you pay me back, and they don't care about your situation, they don't care about your circumstance, they don't care about they're not even opening their minds to why you are in the position you are in today. They they do something that's very common, and even some friends that you probably have, you better check them because these friends ain't healthy to be around. They'll guilt trip you on things that you already guilt trip yourself on. One of the things I don't do anymore, or like I used to, is, and I'm talking about with most friends, because I don't have a lot of friends anymore. I I I made a conscious effort not to have a lot of friends, and there's reasons for that. But I stopped criticizing to the point where I felt disgusted. I'm like, I don't feel right doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like, no one, we're not the same exact person. No one, not everyone is as self-aware as you. Not everyone is as self-aware as me. Not everyone is as people smart as you, but they know how to do this. So and also you can't actually you can. Let me preface that. You can be self-biased, But the same people who are self-biased don't even think they're self-biased. They judge things based off their own standards. They're like, oh, if you didn't go to that job interview today, you're not doing anything that you need to do. Like they have a self-biased mentality. They have no clue that they have a self-biased mentality. I'm 20 minutes in this video. I'm killing it. They have no clue they have a self-biased mentality, right? So what I did since I was a kid up to now, I was gonna say slowly, but that was the wrong wording. It actually is way faster than that. I would say step by step. I consciously practice on trying not to be what I didn't like, and what that means is if if I don't like being around ingenuine people, I'm not going to make excuses and say, "Oh, it's my responsibility to be at this picnic with these buddies of mine, or this cookout with these buddies of mine. They expected me." Self care is very important. Number two, speaking of self care, let me stay on self care. Self care. I'm not the biggest self care person in the world. I have to work 20, 30, 40 times harder than the next person to remind myself of the most basic daily routines: brushing my teeth, taking a shower, and it has nothing to do with being lazy. It has everything to do with self care, and it has everything to do with my disorder. I'm not putting all the blame on my disorder. Um, I'm putting the blame on me blaming myself so much. I'm putting my foot down and saying, listen, as long as you're aware of what you're aware of, nobody can tell you nothing. Nobody can tell you nothing. Nobody can tell you what's best for you because you're you. Who can tell you what's best for you than you? And I'm talking about people who um don't do things, or at least try not to do things that they know that they will become addicted to, or it would enhance self-harming impulses, which I have. I have extreme self-harming impulses because it's part of my disorder. No, I never cut myself. I never, you know, all that stuff. But I've done certain things in my life that made a lot of my therapists on record say, okay, he's diagnosed with this. And ironically, I have reasons for why I have these thoughts or have these impulses, but I also have reasons why I don't want to have them. So it's like a lot of what you are or what you're about, you find out why the more you try to understand it. So my point is that the more mindful you are about reasoning with yourself, with things, with others, the mindfulness part is the first step. You're like, okay, she's judging me based on what she doesn't know. So she's holding me to a standard that I can't meet. It's impossible because she doesn't want to be enlightened with new information. She'd rather walk around like a chicken with his head cut off and use the excuse of I'm ignorant. So let me abuse you with my ignorance. Let me abuse you with my neutrality. Let me abuse you, my friend, with my complaints. But you can't do that to me. You see what I'm saying? So one of the most common things is forgetting to be mindful about our own mind. Some things I don't find to be a need as much as other things, and that's self-explanatory. If somebody's like, "Oh, you're supposed to be washing your teeth 3 times a day," I'm like, "That who the fuck gave you the book of life?" Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, nobody gave you the book of life. Who else? As far as like responsibilities, priorities, my thing is that people are gonna do what they want to do, and that old saying, "Can't jump advocate again." When you know better, you do better. Yeah, but not everybody wants a yacht. All right, not everybody on on the planet. Because I can say I'm saying like there's people out there who's like me, who I I don't even like a lot of things. I don't even buy a lot of clothes. It's not because even when I had a lot of money coming in. I mean, let me not say a lot of money. It may seem like I'm like I get paid like big some x amount of figures a year. But when I was getting a certain amount of income, when I was working, I didn't really care about a lot of things other than food and and music. That's like and I was planning to do or get equipment for my channel and create my website and stuff because you know my background is I'm very fascinated by the acting world, the art of acting. Um, Obviously not what Hollywood promotes. That's all like that's a whole another get there. I'm not even talking about that. That's another video. But the art, the craft of acting alone, the craft of comedy alone, um, photography. Um, I'm a visual learner, so it makes sense. Um, spirituality, philosophy, science. Um, just coupled with writing, poetry. Um, you know, a lot of things, right? So like I would do like comedy skits here and there. You know, I would give you a spoonful or anybody who's watching. And as soon as I stopped doing it, I was like, damn, why I stopped doing it? And then later on, I found out why. I'm like, oh, okay. One of the reasons why I stopped doing it is because I was self-doubting myself. I was in the state of self-sabotaging myself. I was in the state of, man, can I do this? Or can I be the best version of this thing I'm doing I can be? And this I'm a reflection. I'm probably a reflection of a lot of people out there just talking in this one video because we don't realize how hard we are on our own self. That's why when people are around me and they start talking about what they couldn't achieve or they couldn't do this or they it's like the more you do that, the more it makes me go, you know what? I need to choose. Do I want to be that or do I want to have balance? And I chose balance. The more the more conscious you are about balance, the more your life will be more stable, even if you are mentally unstable. The more your life will be more stable. You just have to be mindful about it, you be conscious about it, and you have to have a great support system. If you don't have a great support system, well, meet new people. Well, don't like meet to strangers, but meet new people and go with the flow. If you have trust issues, trust me, you don't have trust issues for no reason. But in contrast to another uh, situation in my life where a couple years back, this was the first time me doing topic videos, similar to this one, only I'm ranting. Um, and I would post them on Facebook. This one I used to go on Facebook. Um, and barely people would watch it. Barely people. So I thought. So I thought. About a year or two later, I found out how many people really watch my videos. Now I'm not talking about. Don't exaggerate what I'm saying. I'm not saying 2,000 people. I'm saying like your expectations sometimes can be your downfall. And we forget that. We forget that expecting to the point where we let ourselves down as part of life and as part of change, part of growth. It's not always one way. Sometimes you gotta just not expect nothing. Sometimes you gotta let things happen. And that's the difference between me back then, especially when I was a kid. Oh my god, I expected like hell. You could predict or make smart predictions, using your intuition, using your knowledge, using your observation of the world. But expectations or whatever, or high standards, the more I didn't meet up to my high standards, what I made for myself, I'm my narrator of my standards. If you're a narrator of your standards, your life, your religion, whatever it is, you're a self-aware person. Self-aware people, it's hard for self-aware people to be governed. Very, very hard. Or they can't be governed. What am I talking about? Um, the more conscious I was about that, and I was like, man, that's the key to lowering stress levels. So one of the things I do consciously is I try to limit as much stress in my life as possible because people like us, we got to deal with mania. There's depression mania. It's two sides. There's depression mania, and then, depression mania. There's depression mania, and then there's the rageful mania. I remember being on stage as a kid or as a teenager, whenever I was on stage performing, and I wasn't the most consistent performer. You know, like I said, you have inconsistencies because you're trying to figure out who you are. So, you know, like you know why you're doing it in the moment, but the more you know, the less you know, right? So I'm like on stage and stuff, I'm acting, or I did one time I rapped on stage, whatever, and I'm like, man, I love this. This just having fun alone just makes life way less stressful than it needs to be. You know, if I didn't do the things I did to escape reality, I probably wouldn't be here today. I'm not saying I would have gone through with suicide. I'm saying I'm not doubting it either. I'm not doubting a lot of things that I'm capable or incapable of doing. I don't know what the hell I'm capable of doing. So we're like portals. Human beings, we're like portals. We have layers within us. Everything has layers. Everything has connections. Everything is deeper than you truly believe. People who are face value don't understand that. They think that because they've been around you for 4 years, that they get you. Like they really get you. They like, oh, I know him. Yeah. No, you don't get him. You don't know him the way you do. You don't understand him the way you do. It will be a paradise. I'll call it a paradoxical paradise. I don't even know if that makes sense, but it just came to mind. If it makes sense to you, then good, because I'm just saying shit. In my mind, it makes a little sense, I guess. It doesn't, but it does. Indecisive. It's like a paradoxical paradise. You're like, if I go into that person's shoes, perceive the world in their point of view, in their eyes. Oh no, somebody's calling. Hello? Hello? I'm doing a video. I'll talk to you later. Like I was saying, it's like a paradoxical paradise. If you can step into somebody's shoes and perceive life through their lens, this is the only way you can truly get people or get somebody. Some of the closest ways is reading. I was never afraid to have a position. I don't understand people who not read it. I really don't. The advocates of anti-intellectualism piss people like me off because we got to deal with your ignorance when we step out in the world and try to progress together. We got to deal with you. We're trying to progress together. And this so-called society, it's like somebody like my brother helped looked out for me. He said, I got in his car one day. He said, did you take a shower yet? I was like, nah. He was like, nah, man. Like, I'm not trying to like, make you feel some way, whatever, whatever. Or I don't know. I'm not saying you don't know what you're doing or whatever. But you should take a shower, brush your teeth and stuff like that before you come outside. I was like, I feel you. And you know, sometimes when you think for yourself too much, you you understand you too much, or I don't think it's a too much in that. But what I'm trying to say is, you getting you doesn't mean that people get you on the same level. That's what made me sometimes more moody than I am now. I'm way less moody. I'm still a moody person. You know what I'm saying? I have a mood swing disorder. So I have to do things or tell myself things or do anything I possibly can to try to not get back to what I'm used to, which is, I'm not saying I randomly was like, I'm saying like I was, I was quick to jump to conclusions because I predict what that person would say. And a lot of the time they would say exactly what I predict. Oh, your breath smells. You might want to like they would like the obvious. You tell me the obvious, like would make me defensive because I'm like, it's not like I'm going to a club. Like the reason why, like it's not like I'm in your face like this. But if you can smell it, my bad. But if I'm going to work or something like that, yeah, that's different. But if I'm just coming outside and I mean, going downstairs getting the mail, it's not a big deal to just brush. It's not a big deal to brush your teeth right away and all that stuff. Like you chilling. You have your feet up with the Cheetos in your hand. You might want to brush your teeth after Cheetos. Um, who am I to say that, right? But the point is, I don't. I try not to preach I try not to sound too preachy in my day to day life because when I start talking about what I need to do or need to be or what should be, that's a gap between it's a gap between your potential and where you are right now. If you can find a shortcut on how to narrow the gap, you're well on your way of bettering caring for yourself. I truly believe that. You're well, and in your way, you know, my way might not be your way. My way might not be having everything in my room clean, spick and span. Sometimes I like a shirt tossed over there once in a while because um, studies have it that the most creative people are messy. Now I'm not sure if they mean like most people, but I'm saying like generally speaking, I think that's true because a lot of people I know in my life are very messy and they happen to be very very creative, and I'm one of them. Um, but at the same time, it goes back to balance. Um, the one thing that somebody can say about you that they have no idea about, and they haven't witnessed for themselves, is just that they can't say anything about you. They've been around you, they chilled with you, they hang out with you, they've been through a few things with you, but they don't know exactly what you've been through. They don't know that you used to sleep with balled up fists as a kid because of I don't know whatever was happening at the time. And let me put that devil's advocate again. Are you saying for people to be okay with being victims or okay with being not victims? I'm saying be okay with being what you need to be for that moment. Just as long as it's being authentic. As long as it has good intentions behind it. As long as it has positive energy behind it. Sometimes, I'm being real with you, sometimes you are the victim. This is being real. Sometimes you are the victim. I mean, I'm black. Think about it. I was born victimized or to be victimized in this day and time. I was born to be victimized in this day and time as a black man who was destined to shine. Instead, society tries to find a way to bury a diamond. My blood, my veins, my genes come from dynasty. Never aspired to be one of the finest MCs. All I did was try to be something that I needed to be in order to escape from who I was to become what I achieved to see. I had to put a little stuff word in there. Um, yeah, it's 40 minutes in, so I think I'm gonna end this video. Uh, I'm not gonna do them hour long as videos anymore. I think 30 minutes, 40 minutes is pretty decent. Um, I'm gonna start having other people on me in my type of videos. um, not just anybody. You gotta have substance in what you're saying and what you're talking about. If somebody's like, "What do you know about this?" All I heard you was question. It's like, don't try me. 1865. The system created the first ever terrorist group, the Ku Klux Klan, to try to stop black people from thinking that they really were free. That's a woke fact. It's not a fact as in like that's not something you probably want to hear on TV. That's a woke fact. So yeah, I'm not one of those people that read thousands and thousands and thousands of books. I've read hundreds and hundreds. I never read thousands and thousands. I will eventually, depending on what kind of person I become in the next year or two, maybe in 10 years. Who knows what kind of person I'm going to become? Who knows what kind of person you're going to become? That's the point of life. That's the point of living. If it's a quote, it goes, if if you think the same as you did when you were 10 and you were 60, I don't know if this is exact quote, but I'm paraphrasing. If you think exactly what you thought at age 10 that you do it now at age 50, you wasted 40 years of your life. And I truly believe that because this is why I gravitate to old souls. It's people who in middle school they went through the emo phase as far as identification, where they feel most validated in individually, not attentive wise, but individually. And then when they get to high school, they some jock or something like that. They dunking on people in at recess talking about yeah, know what I'm saying? Like it's just totally you can be both. My point is that like I'm not saying stereotypes specifically, but I'm saying I did that to make an example. What I'm saying is like you could be multiple things in one. You know, I was one of those people that I partially have an emo side to me, but that's because of how I think and how I see the world and what the world is, or my observation of the world. Your perception of the world makes you the way you are, just as much as you make you the way you are. Um, because we all influence each other. What I'm saying is, whether it's conscious or unconscious, the subconscious always wins. But with a little bit of effort, a little bit of work, you can train the mind to do things that the conscious dreamed of doing that the unconscious does in its sleep. It's a poetic thing to say because unconscious is basically like you being asleep. So that's a dope ass metaphor. I'm glad my video ended after I said that. Okay. Um. But yeah, I'm gonna end this video. I thought it was very helpful. Um. A lot of ranting. Um. Got a little personal. Um. Nowhere near as detailed or personal as I can get. Like as far as like what exactly was I doing in those moments? And a lot of things in my life. How often did I travel versus now, or whatever. Like, you know, we all gotta not underestimate other people because we don't want other people to underestimate us. To end it on that. Like Malcolm X said it. He said Don't be so quick to condemn somebody because there was a time where you didn't know anything either, and that's true. You know, there was a time where you didn't know anything either. You know, a lot of times we have those parents or that friend or cousin or whatever that influence in our life that talks to us like we're children when we're 25. And some people do need to be taught like that as children, but at the same time, people are going to do what they want to do at the end of the day. But my point is that self-talk, positive self-talk is important. And when you're drilling in, you know, oh, you didn't, it's like, come on. I'm going to end it on here. Thanks for watching. Um, you know, hope you enjoyed it.